We know that under his leadership as the special counsel for Arctic Frost, that during that operation, they spied on 8 U.S. senators.
When I vice-chaired President Trump's transition, we found out then that the transition team was being spied on, but the Biden DOJ would never give us any specifics about that. We talked to where we were physically located when we either made or received a call, and every call and every number that came into us or went out from our phone during that period of time.
Jack Smith is under pressure. The senators are very unhappy with him. He shouldn't have spied on their phones. It's okay if he spies on everybody else, but not the senators. And so they got together and they sent over a letter to Pam Bondi. You can see a bunch of them came out and signed this one. Marsha Blackburn, Lindsey Graham, who's real nervous about those phone records, Tommy Tuberville, Dan Sullivan, and Mike Kelly, all members of Congress, sending this over to the Board of Professional Responsibility and to Pam Bondi. And so we're going to come back to the letter, but here is what Marsha Blackburn, the top line signatory of the document, had to say. You know, Jack Smith, she says, was a rogue special counsel on a weaponized witch hunt against Republican senators. It's like, and Trump and everybody else who got caught up in this. There must be consequences for this abuse of power. I just sent a letter to Pam Bondi urging the DOJ to investigate him. And so here's what she said. Also, Jack Smith is becoming a household name, and not for a very good reasons. Today, I sent a letter to Bondi calling on the DOJ to investigate Jack Smith for the Biden FBI spying scandal. He must be held accountable for targeting his political opponents. Here's Marsha Blackburn explaining.
Well, Jack Smith is becoming a household name, and not for very good reasons. We know that under his leadership as the special counsel for Arctic Frost, that during that operation, they spied on 8 U.S. senators. I'm leading a letter to DOJ to start an investigation on this.
And they cut it. All right, so she sent this one out. She says, all right, Pam Bondi, we write today following last week's deeply disturbing revelations that the Biden DOJ spied on duly elected members of Congress, specifically seeking and ultimately obtaining, quote, tolling data from cell phones as part of its corrupt, politically motivated Arctic Frost investigation. They say, it is clear to us that this invasion of our privacy, the senator's privacy, was nothing more than a fishing expedition geared towards targeting President Trump. And for the reasons outlined below, we request that you immediately refer Jack Smith to the Department of Professional Responsibility, OPR, because he's been a bad boy. Now, as part of his weaponized witch hunt, right, the senators, the Biden DOJ issued subpoenas to several telecommunications companies in 2023. They wanted our cell phone records, and they got them. Got access to time, recipient, duration, and location of calls placed on our devices from January 4th to January 7th. All 8 of those senators. Yikes. Now, we have yet to learn, this was our question from the beginning, of any legal predicate. Why? What was the basis for it? And what amongst them provides some commonality? Why did they go after this list of people? No idea. Why did they issue subpoenas? And as we saw earlier this week, Chuck Grassley also sent a letter to all of the telecompanies, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, all of them, Lumen, someone else. And he said, who approved this on your end? How dare you just give up senator records over to the executive branch? Who's your lawyers? Who's on your legal counsel team? The CEO approved this? What's the process? While we await further details on these troubling revelations, and now Jack Smith is out with Andrew Weissman and they're doing the media tour to try to get ahead of the story. So we found these troubling revelations as to the DOJ and the FBI, and we're going to continue to investigate. But one thing is clear, Pam, Jack Smith was a rogue special counsel. He wasn't even a legitimate one, who, based on his conduct in the Arctic Frost matter, would do anything to stop President Trump. And he basically inherited the Arctic Frost case from Timothy Thibault. I think that's how you say his name. It's French. Including taking concerted steps to spy on duly elected members of Congress. They did everyone else, so yeah. In the United States, one of the fundamental principles of our constitutional republic, that's nice to see that, is the concept of separation of powers. By infringing on our constitutional rights and obligations as elected federal officials, Jack Smith and his team of goons, Jay Bratt, Thomas Wyndham, they trampled on this separation of powers principle that underlies our system of government. This is especially true given the invasion of our privacy. It was directly connected to our core legislative functions, which are all protected by the Constitution, the speech or debate clause. Now, in addition to these constitutional concerns, we believe that Jack Smith engaged in serious prosecutorial misconduct. Without any sufficient rationale or cause at all, Jack Smith's team used a federal grand jury subpoena. And so we're learning more about that. We didn't know exactly if they were like requests or what, to obtain phone records. And so what was the federal grand jury impaneled for? Was it related to any other investigation, open investigation? Was it related to the Trump grand juries, or was it something else? They maybe didn't get charged. To obtain obtain the phone records of sitting senators and members of the House. To the best we can tell, Smith's team went on a fishing expedition for one simple reason. The commonality: we are Republicans who support Trump, that's it. And as noted, we have no knowledge of any predicate that underlines the invasion of our privacy. They're mad, man. To that end, upon the Senate Judiciary Committee and the Homeland Security Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, once we get all the documents and records, we urge you to refer Jack Smith and any of his prosecutors who assisted in the issuance of these subpoenas to the 9 members of Congress and their records to the Office of Professional Responsibility. It's like, oh gosh. As you know, the mission of OPR is to ensure that the department attorneys perform their duties in accordance with the highest professional standards. They probably will approve it. Like, oh, Jack Smith, he went after Trump and Republicans. That is our standard. Are you attacking Republicans? Great. You've passed the test. You've met the standard. Great. From the information we already know, it's clear that he fell far below the highest professional standards. It doesn't matter, honestly. I mean, it should matter. I'm not happy that it doesn't, but Fani Willis was indicting her special counsel repeatedly, sometimes probably multiple times a day. It's disgusting. And they were sending thousands of text messages, and they were scheduling themselves 2-hour debrief lunches on their calendar, and nothing happened. She got reelected. Nobody referred her to the state bar or anything like that. Office of Professional Responsibility is obviously a federal entity and part of the, not a state level governance body, but it's ridiculous to think that they're going to care. Okay, Tish can do whatever she wants. Jack Smith was getting glowing endorsements for the 2 years he was doing this. Nobody stepped in. Nobody filed a complaint. Now the senators are upset about it. Jack Smith should be prosecuted. This is the precursor to that. We'll see what happens. He wasn't even legitimate. He wasn't even lawfully appointed. Merrick Garland was the one who signed that order. Merrick Garland should also be responsible for this. Garland, Monaco, everybody up the chain. Smith is licensed to practice law in both Tennessee and New York, and in both jurisdictions, the rule of professional conduct strictly prohibit a lawyer from using means that have no substantial purpose other than to embarrass and delay and attack a person. Again, which is this whole operation. It is blatantly clear, right, the senators, that by seeking these phone records without our knowledge and consent and without any known legal predicate, Jack Smith violated the rules of professional conduct. And they're intended to prevent this type of stuff from happening. Obviously, that failed. Now, upon completion of your investigation, we promptly urge you to refer the findings to both Tennessee and to New York. So you investigate, then pass it off to them, and then they can revoke his licenses. We firmly believe that upon examination of these findings, these state entities should consider all options in holding him accountable for his misconduct, including disbarment. Now, the conduct that he and his team engaged in harkens all the way back to a dark chapter in American history. And we have not seen this since the days of J. Edgar Hoover and the completely corrupt investigation and prosecution by the FBI and the DOJ of the late Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska. We must ensure that we never return to these disgraceful eras. We were just in it. Thank you for your attention to this urgent matter and for your continued work to root out the two-tiered justice system that for far too long has existed in the disgusting bowels of the DOJ. Signed by Marcia, Lindsay, Dan, Tommy, and Mike, also being copied to Tennessee and New York. New York, their grievance. Tennessee might do something about it because they're not totally nuts. But New York, I think they're just going to go, oh, great. Oh, so Jack Smith went after President Trump? Perfect. They might give him a medal, an commendation. Ridiculous. So that is the letter that got sent out. And here is a little bit more from Tuberville. He signed the letter. He said, Jack Smith shouldn't even be able to get a job as a dog catcher after he spied on 8 U.S. senators. He should be disbarred and thrown in jail. Now, that jail part didn't make it into the letter, but here's what Tuberville had to say about this.
Well, first of all, if you do it to a sitting United States senator, 8 of us, you'd do it to anybody. And so it kind of sets a precedent. Jack Smith shouldn't be able to get a dog catcher's job after all this is over with. Marsha Blackburn and I are trying to look into a situation where we can get him disbarred. There's no reason for him to be able to practice law in this country by going through these rules that he's trying to break.
No, he shouldn't be able to practice law. He shouldn't be able to go out and walk his dog around the block of the neighborhood because he'll be in jail. He can go walk the yard. All right, so we'll see if that happens. Now, ultimately, I think they're probably inching towards some maybe prosecutions and investigations that will emanate from the priors, the Comey, the Boltons, and just follow the dominoes where they lead. So hopefully Jack Smith is next on the list. But here was our friend Jack Posobiec over on Real America's Voice talking with Marcia about this.
Yes, and Jack, it wasn't the first time. In 2016, when I vice-chaired President Trump's transition, we found out then that the transition team was being spied on, but the Biden DOJ would never give us any specifics about that. Now, what we did find out was that they spied on us after January 4th to January 7th of 2021. The way they did that, in May of 23, they sent a letter to our wireless carriers, and they had a subpoena and demanded our our phone records, everybody we talked to, where we were physically located when we either made or received a call, and every call and every number that came into us or went out from our phone during that period of time. Now, we also are looking at September. It appears that there's the May date and there's also a September date. In addition to this, I have sent a letter to the D.C. Bar regarding Jack Smith and his conduct and calling for a review by the D.C. Bar, filed a complaint with them. In addition, 5 of my colleagues joined me on a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi requesting that DOJ begin an investigation into the conduct of Jack Smith. And of course, he should be disbarred. The groundwork we are laying are things that would call for his disbarment. And what we know is this is not only an invasion of privacy, an infringement of our free speech, but it is also an infringement of the speech and debate clause. For a wireless company to give your records over and this is not something, we're not criminals, we're not people that were a flight risk, any of that. What they did was to turn those records over, and it shows you how weaponized this CR-15 unit that Jack Smith used as he investigated President Trump, how they were so politicized. And thank goodness Kash Patel has fired everybody that was affiliated with that unit.
That's good news. So reforms are underway, and now the senators are activated. They're not happy with their phone records getting spied on. Of course, we're going to keep our eye on this. Jack Smith does belong in jail, just like Tuberville said, and we'll keep focusing on this until that happens.